Hello, my crafty friend. I'm so excited for this video. This is one of my favorite projects that I've made so far. I appreciate you joining me for this one. We are going to be using different molds, the skull, rose, and heart, to come up with this really awesome project. And we'll be using different techniques too. So we're going to incorporate gold leaf, metallic powder, as well as chameleon powder. So buckle your seatbelts, let's get crafting. Before we get started, I am just going to spritz on this mold release, but it helps your molds release easier and it'll help protect your molds over time as well. So before we stir our resin, because I don't want the resin to hard while I'm prepping the molds, I am going to use a couple different techniques. For the rose, I am going to add this, I've got different colors, but this is a rose gold flakes. So I'm going to add that to the rose mold. And right after that, I'll be brushing on the chameleon powder. This is a champagne color. I love these. I found them on Amazon. Actually, it's from Resin. Not sponsored, but these chameleon powders are just gorgeous whenever you get them put on the molds. So we'll be using this one on the skull, and then Resin also has these metallic ones, and I'm going to be using this one on the heart, but this one can just get poured directly into the resin. But right now we're going to prep the rose and the skull. So with the rose gold, I'm just going to use tweezers, and I'm going to pull out little flakes and put them inside the mold where I want them to be, which I want them to be on the tips of the rose. So I'll put them directly into the mold before I pour the resin. Alright, now I have the little rose gold flakes set where I want them to. And after we get done prepping the skull, we're going to pour the resin that goes inside of this. So next is the skull. And what I want to do with this is add the champagne colored chameleon powder. And I'm just going to be brushing it inside the mold. And it works best if you use a black background. So I'll be using black mica powder background for the resin that I pour into it. And since it's going to be black, and since this is a skull, whenever I brush this inside, I'm not going to brush the eyes or the nose sockets. That way it'll show up more black while the rest of it shows up the champagne. So let's get brushing. Alright, and you just want to make sure that it's coated evenly in there and that there's no loose powder left. And as you can see, I left the eye sockets and the nose without the powder on it. That way the black's going to show through on that. Now we can pour our resin. Don't forget your PPE, your gloves, your mask. You've got to stay safe. We have our resin mix now, and I'm just going to add the white mica powder to this one and the black, the graphite black, to this one, and stir it up. Alright, and the black is going to go in the skull with the chameleon powder because it really brings out that chameleon powder. It ends up, it's just beautiful. So we'll pour that right in. I created a decent amount of bubbles because I stirred a little too fast, so I'm going to hit it with the heat gun. Then I'll continue pouring. Alright, I'm just going to set this aside for a minute while we do the rose. And I'll let it sit for a few minutes so all the air bubbles can come to the top and we can just use that heat gun to get rid of the rest. So with the rose, I'm going to do a white. And with this mold, it's got a lot of like grooves on the inside. So I'm just gonna put a little bit in there and then I'm gonna squish it to get the air bubbles to come out. Believe me, if you don't squish it like this, then the air bubbles are gonna stay in there and they're gonna show up on your project. I'm gonna go ahead and set these aside on a level surface to let them dry while we work on the heart. For the heart, I'm just gonna pour the bronze metallic powder directly into the resin and stir it up. All right, now I'm gonna pour it directly into the mold. All right, and then we're just gonna set this aside on a level surface and let it dry. It's the next day, so these are hard enough to demold. And we are actually going to keep the heart inside of the mold because we have one more step. And that is to add a layer of clear resin that not only adds a really nice shine to all these, but it will also stick the skull and the rose to the heart. So let's see how these turned out. That's pretty cool. I like how the rose gold showed up on the edges there. All right, now the skull. And this was the chameleon, or the champagne color. Dude, I love these chameleon colors so much. They just turn out so awesome. And see, I didn't put the powder where the eyes and the nose are, so it turned out black since we used the black for the base. That was just too cool. So this next part's gonna get messy. I've got my resin here and I'm just keeping it clear because I want to have a nice clear shiny coat on the heart and end up on this golden rose. So I'm just gonna pour a little layer onto the heart. Make a mess while I'm at it. Then I'm just going to use my spatula to try to spread it out a little bit. I want to even across the surface here. And it does self-level, so that's always good. Then I'm going to use my little silicone tool because there's some little bitty bubbles that have stuck to the sides here. And I want to get them to the top so that I can get the heat gun on them. Get rid of them. Alright, and then here comes the messy part. So, I'm going to take the skull and I'm actually going to pour some resin directly on top of it. I want to get a nice clear layer. And I'm just going to rub it in here. And then put it directly into the heart where I want it. Then the rose I'll just set in there. Then pour a little bit of resin on top of that. Use my silicone tool to move that resin around so it's more of a thin layer rather than a thick layer. Sometimes you just gotta get your hands dirty. Makes it more fun. And I'm removing bubbles at the same time. And then I want to hit it with the heat gun again, kind of smooth out the resin and get rid of the bubbles. is one last touch I'd like to do. I'd like to add more of the rose gold. So just gonna get my tweezers out and add some extra little pieces here. Then I'm just gonna use my little silicone tool to move all the little pieces around and get them where I want them. Sink them into the resin a little bit so they'll stay. The resin was a little too thin when I put it on originally, so since it's been sitting here a minute, I'm going to put a little bit more on the skull to get that layer of shine on it. Just gotta make sure you smooth it out. But since the resin's been sitting here for a little bit, it's thickened up a little bit, so it'll stick better on the skull. Alright, I believe we are good. Then we are just gonna set that aside on a level surface and let it dry for 24 hours. And if you've liked this so far, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. I'm still fairly new to YouTube, so it really helps a lot when you like my videos and they can get pushed out there to more people and more people can find them. Alright, so let's let this sit and we'll come back tomorrow. And there it is, the finished piece. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.